Hello students, let us discuss the chapter number 6, that is Indian Constitution, that is part 1. So as the chapter is lengthy, I have made two sections here, that is part 1 and part 2. So now we are going to discuss the part 1. The name of the course is Professional Ethics and Indian Constitution. This subject is there for the fourth semester Electronics and Communication Engineering and Electronic Instrumentation and Control Engineering. The maximum marks allotted for the chapter is 40 marks. This is a very important chapter from the exam point of view. It is simple and the maximum hours is 14 hours. So myself Vijay Huki, lecturer in Electronics and Communication Engineering Department, so SJP Interest Polytechnic, Netsoshi. As we are discussing the questions which are asked at the end of the chapter, so that is the question banks. So we start with the different questions with the answer possible solution. So the first question is, describe briefly about the Indian Constitution. So this may be asked for 5 marks. So let us discuss about the Indian Constitution. The first point what I have given here is the word constitution is basically obtained from the Latin word constitutio. So it means to form or to establish. Second point, the constitution of a country establish the basic structure of a political system under which its people are being governed. So that means it gives a political structure in the system. So by using the political structure, so there is what the formation of government, there will be a election and the people are being governed. And third point is, it is the longest written constitution in the world, which uses a total of 1,17,369 words in the English language. So I can quote one or two extra point. So the Constitution of India is considered to be the supreme law of land, as it lays down the framework of fundamental political principles, then establishing the structure, then procedures, powers and duties of the government, and mentions the fundamental rights, then directive principles and duties of the citizens. And if there is no constitution, or in the absence of constitution, so there will be disorders or lawlessness in the country. Hence every country, whether it is democratic or communist, so they must possess a constitution. So the next question is, explain the formation and composition of Constituent Assembly. So this is most of the time they are not asked yet, but this may be asked for 10 marks. So first we are going to discuss the formation of Constituent Assembly. The first point is, around 1920 to 1930s, the Congress and other national parties like Muslim League increased the demand for a Constituent Assembly of India to frame the Constitution of India. So that was the beginning point for the formation of Constituent Assembly. Second, the strong demand for Constituent Assembly was accepted for the first time by British government in the year 1940, right? August 1940. Third point, the Constituent Assembly had an initial total strength of 389 members. Then on 11th December 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the President of Constituent Assembly. Then on 13th December 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru moved the historic objectives resolution in the Constituent Assembly. That is what the aims and objectives of the future constitution. So later these objectives resolution became the guiding principles and philosophy in making of the Indian Constitution. So now we will discuss the composition of Constituent Assembly. So the all important, the committee who take the responsibility of drafting the constitution, called drafting committee, so which was formed on 29th August 1947, and the members were Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the chairman for the drafting committee, and the members were N. Gopalaswamy Iyengar, then Alladi Krishnaswamy, then Krishnaswamy Iyer, then K.M. Munshi, then Saeed Muhammad Sadullah, etc. These were what the members of that committee, drafting committee. So the constitution was finally passed and accepted on 26 November 1949. The last session of assembly was on 24 January 1950. So which elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the President of India. So in all, the 284 members of the assembly signed the official copies of the Indian constitution, which came into effect on 26 January 1950, which is known and celebrated as the Republic Day of India. So let us discuss the silent features of the Indian Constitution. So this is a very important question from the exam point of view. So as you can see the number of stars there, 4 stars means this question has repeated 4 times in the last 8 exam. So most of the time it is asked for 10 marks here. So let us discuss the features one by one. So first point is the lengthiest written constitution in the world. So that is, the Indian constitution is the lengthiest and the most detailed of all the written constitution of the world. Then second, parliamentary form of government. So that is, the constitution of India has given the parliamentary structure of government both at the center and in the state. So in center, the president is the constitutional head of the state, but real power is given to the council of ministers with prime minister as the head. So same thing in the state, the governor is the constitutional head of the state, but the real power is with the council of ministers whose head is the chief minister. So that is what the parliamentary form of government. And third one is partly rigid and partly flexible. So the constitution may be called rigid or flexible on the basis of making changes, that is amending procedures being difficult or easy. So that we can say some of the things can be easily changed, and some of the things we cannot change it easily. It is what rigid and flexible. And fourth one is fundamental rights. Our constitution has established the fundamental rights of Indian citizens in its text document. So right to equality, right to live, right to freedom of thoughts and expressions, etc. All these are what the fundamental rights. Then fifth one is fundamental duties. The constitution has added almost 10 fundamental duties of a citizen of India. Then sixth point is drawn from different sources. That is, Indian constitution, basically it is not a original constitution, so but it was borrowed from the constitution by imitating the other constitutions that were in effect worldwide. For example, I can quote, the system of parliamentary democracy was borrowed from the British constitution. Similarly, the provisions of emergency powers from the Germany constitution, and the fundamental rights and the concept of written constitution from the constitution of USA. And seventh is adult suffrage. So adult suffrage means, under the Indian constitution, so every man and woman above the age of 18 years has been given the right to elect representative for the legislature. So that is, they have given the power to vote in the elections. And eighth one is a secular state. A secular state has no religion of its own as recognized religion of state, so it treats all religions equally. And next feature is single citizenship. So in India there is only one citizenship, that is citizen of India. There is no state citizenship like citizen of Karnataka or citizen of Maharashtra. So we are not going to call any citizen by the name of the state. So every Indian is a citizen of India, and he enjoys the same rights of citizenship no matter in what state he resides. Then 10th one is establishment of welfare state. So that is, a welfare state is committed to welfare of the people of the country. Then official language. So as we know, in our India there are so many languages, but our constitution has declared the Hindi as the official or the national language to bring all the people into a common platform for all the purposes. And next one is official language over. Okay, then creation of all India services, that our constitution has provided an article for the establishment of all India services like IAS, Indian Administrative Services, IFS, that is Indian Foreign Services, then IPS, Indian Police Services, etc. So these officials are appointed by the central government to the different states. And last one is special status to Jammu and Kashmir. So according to our constitution, a separate constituent assembly was constituted for Jammu and Kashmir, and a separate constitution was drawn for Jammu and Kashmir. So next question is, explain preamble and its main objectives of Indian Constitution. So our Constitution begins with the preamble. So the preamble of a Constitution is an introduction to the Constitution. So it declares the aims and objective of the Constitution. It clearly explains the purpose of Constitution and what is the philosophy behind this. So many times the preamble is considered as the mirror of the constitution, since it will explore the fundamental features of our constitution. So next we are going to discuss the objectives of preamble of our constitution. So the first one is, we the people of India. So the words "we the people of India," so it clearly states that the constitution gets its authority from the people and not from the states or any sections of the society, or even not from even the formal rulers of the Indian states before independence. So that is the reason it starts with "we the people of India." Second, sovereign. So sovereign state means supremacy, then self-government and complete independence. And third one is socialist. So India is a socialist nation because a socialist system provides an equal opportunity to all the people to share the nation's wealth. The objective of socialist system is to minimize the gap between the rich and the poor by eliminating the inequalities in income, social status and standard of living. And fourth one is secular. So India is a secular nation. It means that there is no state religion. The state treats all religions as same and equal and protects all religions equally. And fifth one is justice. Our constitution highlights that the state will have to treat all its citizens as equal before law. Accordingly, it is the duty of all in the society to maintain law and order. And sixth one is liberty. So our constitution assures all its people the liberty, that is the basic rights from freedoms such as freedom of thought, belief, expression, faith and worship. So our citizens have been granted with an opportunity to choose their own way of life and can express their feelings without any fear and practice their beliefs with all their thoughts and faiths of their own. And seventh one is equality. So our constitution assures all its citizens the right to equality of status and attempts to provide an opportunity for individual growth. Then eighth one is fraternity. So our constitution aims to promote a feeling of fraternity or brotherhood. So that is, all citizens should be like brothers and sisters among all citizens. Then next one is republic. So India is a republic country. So that is what our constitution has provided an elected head of the state called president. A republic form of government is not ruled by a king or queen. So the president of India is the head of the Indian Republic, who is an elected representative of the people. And 10th one is democratic. So India is a democratic nation. As a democratic nation, the people of India can elect members from among themselves to form their own government and for their own welfare process. So democratic government suggests a form of government which is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And 11th point is unity and integrity of the nation. That is, in the critical events of war, threats, that is external attacks, or internal revolts, that is what the fight in a violent way against the government, so that is what internal revolts. Then communal violences, then the citizens of our country must forget all their differences of opinions, and they should come together to promote the national independence and safeguard of the nation. And lastly, so dignity of the individual. So for an individual to lead a dignified life, better living conditions, then better conditions of work, a decent standard of life, living free from all sorts of exploitation and discrimination are certainly essential, and indeed all these measures promote and maintain the dignity of the individual. So next question is, explain the fundamental rights of every citizen. So this is asked 3 times in the exam. For they can ask for 5 marks or 10 marks. So the fundamental rights, basically these are the basic rights given to all the citizens by the constitution of the country, and which are essential for man to lead a decent and respectable life. So let us discuss the fundamental rights one by one. First one is right to equality. So that is equality before law, and equal opportunity in matters of employment, then prohibition of discrimination on any citizen on grounds of caste, religion, etc. Second, the right to freedom. So that is freedom of speech and expression, then right to practice any profession or occupation. Third one is right against exploitation. So that is prohibition of all kinds of forced labor, child labor, etc. Then the right to freedom of religion. So right to practice one's religion and no forced conversions and harming other communities. Then fifth one is cultural and educational rights. So that is, we have to protect and promote minorities language, literature, culture, and open their educational institutions. Then sixth one is the right to constitutional remedies. So that is provisions for the courts to protect the people's fundamental rights and for the enforcement of public duties. So next question is, what are the fundamental duties of every citizen? Or they can ask, explain the fundamental duties of every citizen. This is asked once in the exam. So again, this can be asked for 5 or 10 marks. So first, before going into the duties, first we'll see what are fundamental duties. So the fundamental duties of our constitutions are the code of conduct. That is what the common rules for the citizens of the country, which they are expected to follow in their actions and reactions. So let us discuss the fundamental duties one by one. So first one is to abide by the constitution and to respect the national flag and national anthem. Second, to cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. Then to protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. Then to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. So then fifth one is to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India beyond the boundaries of language, religion, regional differences, and to give up practices that are harmful and offensive to the dignity of women. And sixth one is to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. Seventh, to protect and improve the natural environment including forest, lakes, rivers and wildlife. So apart from this, there are other fundamental duties. So that is, we have to develop a scientific temper, humanism, then spirit of inquiry and reform. Then we have to safeguard the public property, and we have to curb the violence. Curb means we have to stop violence, and uh, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individuals and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. So next question is explain the directive principles of state policy. So again this is asked once in the exam. So the directive principles of the state policy are the guidelines to the central and state government of India to promote and uphold the moral of the welfare state. So there are certain directive principles of the state policy. So first one is the state will promote the welfare of its people and reduce inequalities. Second, right to adequate livelihood and equal pay. Then legal help to poor and needy persons. Third one, organizations of village panchayats. Fourth, right to work to get education. Then give workers opportunity to earn a living wage. Then extend maternity relief. Then sixth one is promotion of uniform civil code. So that is uniform civil code is replacing personal laws based on major religious community in the country with a common rule for every citizen. So that is uniform civil code. 7, provide childhood care to all the children below the age of 6. Then provide fair educational and economic opportunities to SC, ST and other backward classes. So next question is again the important question from the exam point of view is the basic structure of parliament. They can ask write about the basic structure of parliament, or they can ask explain the structure of parliament. As you can see, the parliament headed by the president of India, and there are two houses, that is lower house and upper house. The upper house is also called Rajya Sabha and lower house is also called Lok Sabha. So let us discuss one by one here. So the Parliament of India consists of three organs. So that is, first one is the President. So the President of India is an integral part of the Parliament. So the members of Parliament are either elected by the people of India or nominated by the President of India. Second, so Rajya Sabha. So the if they ask separately explain the composition of Rajya Sabha or write a note on Rajya Sabha, then you can write these points here. The first point is it is the upper house of the parliament and it is also known as Council of States. Second, it consists of 250 members, out of which 238 members are elected by state MLAs and 12 members nominated by President for contributions to art, literature, science and social services. Then third one is the members of Rajya Sabha are elected for a period of 6 years. So these members will retire after their term and the same members will be re-elected. And Rajya Sabha is a permanent house and is not subject to dissolution, that is dismissing an assembly. So fifth point is the Vice President of India is the Speaker of Rajya Sabha. He is elected by both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha members. Sixth point is for electing a member, he must be a citizen of India and age must be more than 30 years. And next one is Lok Sabha. They can ask the question, explain the composition of Lok Sabha or write a note on Lok Sabha. So it is the lower house of the parliament and it is also known as House of the People. Second point, it consists of 545 members, out of which 543 members are elected by general population and 2 Anglo-Indians elected by the President of India. So the third point is the members of Lok Sabha are elected for a period of 5 years. Then fourth point is the speaker is the presiding officer of the Lok Sabha in the Parliament House. So one of the members from the Lok Sabha is elected as the speaker of the house. Then fifth point is for electing a member, he or she must be a citizen of India and age must be more than 25 years. So if the question is asked, explain the structure of parliament, if it is asked for 10 marks, you have to write everything. So that first you have to draw the diagram there. So indicating the president and the two houses, the members and who will be the speaker. So that diagram you have to draw and you have to explain the three organs of the parliament, that is president, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. And specifically if they ask write a note on Rajya Sabha or write a note on Lok Sabha, you write down these particular points. Next question, list the functions and powers of parliament. So this may be asked for 5 marks or 10 marks. So the different functions performed by the parliaments are legislative functions, executive functions, financial functions, then constituent functions, judicial functions, then electoral functions. So let us discuss few functions here. So legislative functions, it makes the laws for governance of the country, and even the budget approval is done by the legislative functions, and it will govern the executive. Then it takes the decisions of declaring the emergencies in the country, then it frames the foreign policies of the country. So these are what some of the functions of legislative function. So then executive functions is it conducts the parliamentary sessions, then it discusses the dissolution of the Lok Sabha, then it makes all major appointments in the country. So then it resolves the interdepartmental disputes, then it is abide by the directions of legislature, then it will establish international relations, and the collection of taxes, that is revenue, it is done by the executive functions. Then financial functions, it passes the money bill, then it recommends the financial commission, then parliament enjoys the supreme authority in financial matters. So executive cannot spend any money without the parliament's approval. So next, the powers of parliament, or the question may be the powers of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So both are same. So first one is legislative powers. So that is the prime function of the parliament is to make laws. It can also withdraw existing law. So law and lawmaking, they are quite essential to maintain peace, law and order in the country, to bring efficiency in the administration, and thereby to bring about the necessary and social and economic changes. Then financial powers, the parliament exercises full control over the finance, public finance, that is public funds. So it will discuss and approve the estimates on annual revenue collection and expenditure of Government of India, popularly known as general budget, which is presented by the finance minister. Similarly, the railway budget will also be discussed and passed by the parliament. So the central government cannot collect taxes and spend public money without the approval of the parliament. So hence the parliament has ultimate control over financial matters of the country. So then administrative control, so the government shares the responsibility of public administration. So the leader of the majority party, he becomes the prime minister, and he or she is the real executive along with his council of ministers. The council of ministers holding different departments are responsible to parliament. Then the constitutional powers are, the parliament has the power to change some articles and provisions of constitution. So electoral functions, that is to elect president and vice president of India, then they have the authority to secure information, then conflict resolution. So next question is, what are the procedures followed in parliament in making a law? So when they are making a fresh law in the parliament, so what are the procedure they are going to follow? So that is a question. So the Indian constitution gives the law making procedure in Indian parliament. So these the primary function of the Indian parliament is to make fresh law or to revise existing laws. So means if already there are certain laws, and if you want to make certain changes, we have to revise it. So even that is possible in the parliament. So law making involves converting a bill into act. So the parliament may make laws on all subjects given in the central list of 97 items and concurrent list of 47 items. Then every bill has to pass through three distinct stages known as three readings. So that is, first reading. In first reading, what will happen? A bill is proposed and published in the Gazette and moved in the House. That is what that particular time period is called first reading. Then in the second reading, what will happen? A detailed examination of the bill and referred to a select committee of the both houses, or circulated for the purpose of collecting public opinion. So this we call it as second reading. and in the third reading what will happen, bill is discussed for verbal amendments and the whole bill is put to vote. So that is the third reading. So once the bill is passed by a majority of members voting at both the houses, then the bill is presented to the president for his assent, that is for the signature. So finally the president has to sign. Then last point is, once the president of India gives his assent by signing the bill, a bill will now becomes an act or a law. So this is what the procedure is followed for making a new law. So next question, list the eligibility condition or criteria required to elect the president of India. So as we know, the president is what, the executive head of the Indian Republic. So he is what, basically we call it him as what, the first citizen of India. So in order to contest in the election, so that is to become a president of India, he has to acquire certain conditions or criteria. So we'll discuss one by one, and this question has asked once in the exam for 5 marks. So first one is, he or she must be a citizen of India, that is the first condition. Then second, he or she must have completed the age of at least 35 years. Then he or she must be qualified for election as a member of the Lok Sabha. And fourth one is, president's term of office is 5 years. Then the presidential candidate should deposit rupees of 15,000. Any candidate has to deposit a 15,000. Then last one, an important one is, he or she must not hold any office of profit under any government. So next question is, state the powers and functions of president. So a president has got more power and functions. So we'll discuss one by one. This is asked once in the exam for 5 marks, and even they can ask for even 10 marks as well. So the first power and function is, he appoints prime minister and other ministers on the advice of prime minister. Second, he appoints the judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts, then the governors of the state, chief election commissioner, then the chairman and members of UPSC. Then he gives approval to the bills passed by the two houses of parliament. Then fourth one, he nominates 12 members of Rajya Sabha and also nominate Anglo-Indian members to the Lok Sabha. Then fifth one is, the president has the power of clemency. Clemency means kshamadana. Sixth one is, the budget also needs the approval of the president. Seventh, the members of finance commission and planning commission are appointed by the president. Then eighth one is, he has the power to declare the war or peace with an approval of the cabinet. And ninth one is, the general, so that is the chief of army, and the admiral, so the chief of navy, and the air chief marshal, that is the chief of air force, that is air chief marshal, they are appointed by the president itself. And other function is, the president even appoints the ambassadors to represent our country at abroad, so that is for at other nations. Then even he can impose a president rule in the state. Next question is, explain the roles or powers and functions of vice president. So we know the vice president of India is one of the second highest honors, dignity and position in the country. So the vice president of India is elected by the members of both houses of the parliament. So let us discuss the powers and functions of the vice president. This can be asked for 5 marks. So he look after the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha. Then second point, in the absence of president, the vice president of India acts as a president of India. Suppose if the president if he goes somewhere out of country, and the vice president itself will become the president. Then the third one is, he certifies the bills passed by the Rajya Sabha. And fourth one is, he can postpone the house. Next question is, state the powers and functions of the prime minister. So the first power or function is, before that, the prime minister is the head of the council of the ministers in the Parliament of India. So he is the leader of the majority party of the Lok Sabha. So he can perform so many functions. So let us discuss one by one. So first one is to act as leader of Lok Sabha. Second, to appoint Council of Ministers. Then third one, he can remove and appoint ministers from the cabinet as and when necessary. And fourth one is to reshuffle the cabinet as and when necessary. Then fifth one is to represent the country at national and international conferences and act as chief spokesman of the government in foreign affairs. Then sixth one is he communicates to president for all decisions of the council of ministers. Then seven, he takes all the members into confidence. So he is the chairman of planning commission and makes the economic plans. And last one is to perform and exercise duties as the head of the government. Thank you.